The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to hang on the line here for a couple of minutes to give folks a second to log on and start viewing, and we'll begin right at 10 o'clock. All right, everybody, we have hit 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and start our presentation today. First of all, we want to say good morning and thank you for joining us for the webinar today. We're going to focus on bringing efficiencies and accuracy to your AP automation processes through automation and working with Navient and the Hyland OnBase solution. This morning, our presentation is going to be presented by myself, Emma Roloff, and my cohort here, Trevor Graham, and we are both account managers for Navient. And just a couple of interaction options to touch on before we kind of dive into the presentation. Everybody on the line is muted because we're recording the broadcast, but please feel free to use either the chat box or the question box within the GoToMeeting panel there to type any questions or comments that you have for us, and we'll keep an eye on that throughout the presentation and make sure that we're addressing anything as it arises. So just a quick review of the agenda for today. We're going to start by reviewing some findings of top challenges for your peers within the accounts payable space, looking at a report that was published earlier this year by Hyland Software and Statista. Trevor's going to take over and talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And then we're going to switch our conversation from kind of reviewing that state of accounts payable to looking at what are the tools and the different levels of automation you can bring into your organization to start combating some of those challenges and how Navient and OnBase can help you do that. And then we're going to round out our time together with a quick wrap up and addressing any questions that may come up. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Trevor.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you again for joining us. As Emma just mentioned, the data and information that we're going to be taking a look at here this morning is from the 2018 State of Accounts Payable report. Partnering with Statista, Hyland surveyed 200 AP professionals from organizations across the U.S. to examine what invoice management and processing looks like today. The results we're going to review today reveal how well AP organizations are currently operating, what their primary challenges are, and why consistency, visibility, and control are so valuable in the AP process. So to start, we're going to take a look at what the report found as the top accounts payable challenges. So the report found that the top accounts payable challenges include too many paper documents and files, too much manual data entry, and delays. Now, these delays are a result of a number of issues. First and foremost being invoice exceptions and the delays that cause in the process. Another is the errors and the data discrepancies that may come about during this process and delays that those cause, and also the time that approvers might take to approve the documents. So some organizations might already have an automation system in place, but it may not be necessarily user-friendly. So maybe it still contains complex processes or still requires a lot of manual effort. Other organizations indicated that they are also challenged with modifying processes when they need to. Now, this may be because there is still quite a bit of manual effort needed, and it's also difficult to stop these processes midstream to modify in real time without experiencing setbacks and even more delays. So I think it's important to drill into the issue as a result of delays, as many of the top AP issues boil down to ultimately delays. It's important to take a look at what effects those are having both monetarily and non-monetarily on your organization. So the report found that the biggest issues related to process delays are first and foremost stress. So employees feel that they need to complete their tasks more efficiently and without errors. You add in increased workloads, and this generates even more stress, which can lead to a decrease in employee performance, an increase in errors, and an overall decrease in employee satisfaction. Aside from stress, another big issue related to delays is the delay in delivery of goods and services. Now, the delay in delivery of services or goods can never be a good thing, obviously. It disrupts timelines within an organization, which can have a domino effect. And it also negatively affects your reputation of your organization, which will inevitably lead to damaged business relationship, which ultimately leads to penalties or fines or lost contracts, which brings us to the third biggest result, which is lost money. Again, this comes from a combination of penalties, fines, canceled contracts. So certainly not the least of the issues, but there are monetary impacts of these process delays. So another major aspect, major problem that most AP departments, or at least the ones that responded here, alluded to is visibility. Now, visibility is a critical aspect of the AP process. So many AP departments have a lack of visibility into the statuses of their invoices, the key data from those invoices, and overall industry performance. So in addition to being able to view all of the information contained within each invoice, such as invoice status, matching a purchase order for each invoice, or the date of receipt, it's also very important for AP professionals to be able to view and aggregate information about all of the invoices and process, as well as the related documents to those invoices. Now, taking a step back, it's also very important that the accounts payable professional has visibility into the performance metrics, both of an individual as well as the organization as a whole. So the ability to have good visibility into performance metrics such as time to payment, time to approval, and workload per AP employee equips your organization with the ability to quickly and more easily identify bottlenecks and areas of improvement. So when we talk about visibility being a major facet, we look at what the risk of having no visibility into your data and into your processes look like. So nearly 80% of AP organizations say that tracking notes, corrections, and modifications made to an invoice is either valuable or very valuable to their daily work. Not having visibility into the activity surrounding invoice can lead to questions, mistakes, and confusions, all causing potential delays. And as we've talked about already, these delays have real costs. So there is a financial risk of not having an audible trail of activity surrounding your data, again, such as late payments, duplicate payments, and billing the wrong department.
So I hope that kind of resonates with all of you on the line for some of the challenges that you may see, and maybe not every single one of those hit home, but again, that's the information that was provided by your peers within the industry. So now we're going to kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about how Navient and OnBase can help you develop an AP automation solution that's going to speed up your processing time, improve your accuracy, increase that visibility that Trevor just talked about, and in many cases, reduce or eliminate manual keying. And we'll talk a little bit more about kind of how the steps of automation help us do that. The concept of process automation is not a new one. Most organizations, as Trevor said, have automated their processes to some degree in recent years. But in many cases, we find that the ERP, or your kind of core financial system, is the only tool that's involved in AP processing. And that leaves us a lot of room for further automation and efficiency gains. As we kind of look at this scale up on the screen, other organizations have certainly combined the power of that ERP tool with additional applications to help them increase that level of automation and efficiency. For our discussion today, we're going to continue to come back to this stages of automation screen and discuss the 4 different levels of automation as it was presented within the report that we just discussed from Hyland. And then we're going to look at the tools that can be leveraged to increase efficiency and accuracy within each level of this automation and ultimately drive down your cost per invoice. The 4 levels of automation kind of break down, again, just a different way of looking at this information based on the tools that are being used to process that information. So when we talk about a not automated solution, that doesn't mean that there's no tools being used, but in this scenario, we're going to talk about, the only tool being used to automate that process is the ERP system. Then we're going to look at that next step of automation for partially automated solutions, where we're going to leverage the use of a workflow engine and reporting to streamline the processes of approvals and tracking down information, as well as unlocking the visibility that's needed for AP folks to really gain some of the control back within their process. The next level of automation, we're going to look at how integrations can further reduce manual effort needed by your team. And then finally, we're going to discuss what we call optical character recognition, or OCR, or intelligent capture, as kind of that final level of automation that allows us to really eliminate much of, if not all of, the data entry that's needed from an AP team to keep processes moving along within the organization.
So the first stage of automation that Emma just talked about is having no automation at all, okay? So 12% of the respondents indicated that they have no automation throughout their AP department. So what does this look like? Well, for starters, it's going to have lots of paper. In addition to the quantity of paper, the manual processes that are required to complete a task are often time-consuming and complex, and include a lot of manual steps. This can lead to a lack of visibility, an increase in the risk of delays, fines, penalties, and again, along with overall stress of the department. So if we take a look at what a workflow here would look like for a non-automated AP department, you're seeing that they're, again, relying heavily on manual processes to approve an invoice. So these steps will include the manual printing and manual scanning of a document. Now, even if an invoice comes through electronically, it must be printed off and scanned. And then documents are manually coded, manually delivered to the appropriate manager for approval, and then finally manually keyed into the system. So it is important to note that each one of these manual steps is a potential failure point, creating an opportunity for an error or a delay to occur.
So as we kind of transition, again, each one of these steps is going to bring in new tools, and we're going to talk about how they can kind of revision what that process looks like. So when we start to talk about partially automated solutions, you can see up on the screen, 27% of organizations report that they fall into this category of partially automated. So what does that really look like? Folks that work in AP are often outnumbered by the other people within the organization that are part of that process when it pertains to invoice payment. So these are the people that are approving invoices or submitting purchase orders. And, that group can range anywhere from 5 to hundreds of people that might be involved in your day-to-day processing. And if we look at back to that not automated solution where all you have is an ERP system to help you manage these processes, AP staff is going to be using inefficient methods of communication with those staff members outside of AP to try and keep processes moving. So a partially automated AP process will allow your team to regain some of that lost control and give you automation tools to help manage the tracking down of information and keeping your processes moving. The two main tools that we're going to talk about within this kind of partially automated category are workflow automation and reporting dashboards that are going to give your team the ability to increase consistency and that visibility rather than having to rely on interoffice mail or emails or spreadsheets to keep track of approvals and manage that process outside of your department. Workflow automation, I think, across the board is going to be the tool that we talk about today that brings the most value to organizations, regardless of their size. We're going to talk a little bit more about how important it is for you to find the right stage of automation for your organization. And we have a lot of companies that just leverage workflow and reporting dashboards to give them the solution that they need. Workflow provides us with the opportunity to quickly find a return on investment by optimizing your business processes and really leveraging rules and logic to route information around the organization. We are able to increase consistency by kind of locking your approvers and those folks outside of AP that may be interacting with your process to follow the same steps for reviewing an invoice, coding and approving an invoice. And again, with the reporting dashboards that we're going to talk about, really unlocking some of the new insights that come with the history of the document. And with that history, we're able to increase accountability as well. Workflow can be used to manage not only the routing of the information across the organization, but really different levels of complex processes for things like your approval process. So when we take a look at the example here, we're not just strictly moving an invoice from point A to point B within an organization. We're able to use key information that's presented by your team about the invoice, such as a department code or a specific value of the invoice for approval thresholds. And using that information, the system can use rules and logic to automatically route that invoice for approvals throughout the organization. And these invoices can take different paths. And as you can see with that nice little animation there can even be multiple levels of approval within the process. So again, if an invoice has a certain dollar amount and it needs to be reviewed by multiple folks within the organization, the workflow engine can manage that process without your AP team needing to come back in and manually reroute that invoice at each step of the process. Workflow also helps you decrease the amount of time that's needed to make corrections and enforce process rules. So again, according to that State of Accounts Payable report, 48% of those that were surveyed said that they spent 2 to 4 hours a week enforcing invoice processing rules. And then 41% of those reported that they spend 1 to 3 hours a week correcting errors. So the way that workflow helps you combat these issues is it allows you to build in logic that are going to manage the steps within that process for your team without you having to chase people down to get them to do things correctly. So when you start to think about, does your process require that specific information is given back to the AP team when an invoice has been denied? Well, workflow can ensure that a note is added to that invoice if someone is going to deny the payment of it. Are you consistently receiving incorrect GL coding from your approvers when invoices are coming back? Or, a scenario that we hear pretty frequently is, they just assume we're going to do it and they send it back to us without the coding. So what we can do is using electronic forms and that workflow engine, we can specifically only give them access to a dropdown that has the GL codes that they're able to use. Again, reducing errors and reducing the manual effort that's needed throughout that process. As I mentioned before, reporting dashboards and workflow go hand in hand, and really when we get the consistency and process controls from workflow, reporting dashboards are what give us the ability to really unlock all the insights that's provided within those processes. OnBase reporting dashboards gives us the ability to give you a graphic representation of real-time business activity and drive decisions so that you're able to minimize potential stop points or bottlenecks within your process. Up on the screen, I just have a very kind of basic example of a reporting dashboard, but it shows that there are different tools and different ways for us to graphically represent that information for you. So bar charts, pie charts, you can even see the dial there. It's going to give us the ability to unlock insights into that information and present it to your team in the way that's going to give them the most valuable outcomes. So again, depending on the types of information we're looking for, we can model that data differently so that your team has what they need to act. Within these reporting dashboards, we're able to drill down specifically into areas to pull up a document and see where it may be within the process and why it might be causing a bottleneck, or see where maybe we've got an invoice processor who's buried and needs a little bit of help getting out of that. So this tool will give us the ability to do that. Up on the screen, I have a solution, and it's actually not showing my pointer. So one second, here we go. Let me get this so that we can talk through it a little bit more. It's still, oh, it's not showing. Okay, so up on the screen, starting at the very beginning here, we have a partially automated solution, and I apologize, I can't show you guys exactly what I'm looking for here with the drawing tools. But as a paper invoice comes in or email invoice comes into the organization, we're able to ingest that information right away with an early capture process within OnBase. So capturing scanned documents if need be, or electronically capturing those invoices that are coming in that way. We're able to put that information within the workflow engine and route it to an AP reviewer. And in this scenario, that AP reviewer is still going to manually enter information from that invoice, kind of those key points that we talked about, such as invoice value or invoice date, that are going to help us route that around the organization. Once that information has been put into the system, the workflow engine can take that and route it on for approvals across the organization. I have this Access Anywhere piece here on the far right-hand side because your approvers are going to be able to approve their invoices regardless of where they're working. So directly through Outlook on a mobile device such as an iPad or Android phone, iPhone, as well as directly from their desktop. Once those approvals have taken place, or even throughout that process, at any point, we're able to use that reporting dashboard to take a snapshot of the process and understand again in real time where we are within that process. And after those approvals have taken place, the document will come back with the appropriate information to the AP reviewer to enter that information into their ERP system or that core financial system. Moving into that next kind of generation of automation or a mostly automated solution, 31% of organizations surveyed told us that they have a mostly automated solution. So how does mostly differ from partially is kind of the big question here. And really the key differentiator for a partially versus mostly automated solution is that mostly automated solution is going to provide integrations with that ERP system to, again, reduce manual effort and continue down that path of automation to remove options for errors and that type of thing throughout the process. Integrations with these ERP solutions allow us to limit the amount of back and forth between the applications. So they reduce the amount of manual keying that's needed, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with an example that I've got here quickly. And really, OnBase is known for their integration options. So we've got a lot of different levels of integration that are available, and working with our team, we're going to be able to help you identify what the right option is for you and how we would deploy that within your solution. Up on the screen, I have kind of a fake ERP system, and you can see down in the corner here on the left, there's this document tab that's got the exclamation point on there. And that's really what's going to be our integration point. I'm going to show you guys a tool within OnBase that's called Application Enabler. And really, you don't need to remember that piece, but what it ultimately boils down to is this is a tool that we have that is configurable within OnBase that allows us to integrate with other applications with a 98% success rate. And we're going to use screen scraping technology to take the information that's in your ERP system and use that to execute functions within OnBase by doing things like pulling back documents that are held within the repository. So in this example, if I click on that little floating tile down in the corner, it's going to show me the different document types that are available for me to look at that pertain to this specific invoice number. And I can click on any one of those and pull back documents directly from within OnBase so that I'm not having to go back and forth between those applications. I'm able to stay within that specific user interface that I'm used to. And we're able to execute the types of processes that we would within OnBase. So I can look at the document history for this invoice, see who may have approved it, where it is within its workflow process, and gain those insights that we gain from that partially automated solution, but all throughout this, this interchange of information between our systems. There are also deeper levels of integration that are available within OnBase, and using tools like APIs or custom purpose-built integrations, we are able to have a more real-time bi-directional communication between OnBase and your ERP system. This level of automation and this level of integration does include more customization than the tool that I just showed you. There's going to be a little bit more coding involved because we're going to be interacting with that ERP system at a deeper level. But this is really the next stage of automation, and especially when we get to fully automated solutions, like what Trevor is going to talk about here in a moment, it gives us the ability to change or to pass that information back and forth, and in some cases, process invoices straight through. The last piece of integration that I want to touch on here is the integration with Microsoft Outlook. So as I mentioned before, your approvers can interact with OnBase through their mobile devices or directly through Outlook. And as you can see here on the screen, when they open up an email notification from OnBase that maybe they have an invoice to approve, it'll give them that task directly within that window. So they might not even realize that they're going into OnBase. They can view the document similar to what we talked about before with that ERP integration, and even access the GL coding form that we've created to go ahead and input that information and ultimately process that invoice without ever leaving Outlook. This is going to look pretty familiar from the screen that we just talked about from that partially automated solution. But again, the key difference here is going to be the integration with that ERP system. So in this scenario, we're not completely eliminating manual entry of data. Your team is still going to have to type information within their system, but we are able to use that integration with the ERP system to minimize that data entry by using that screen scraping capability. So if we're in a dual environment or a dual monitor environment, we can take information from your ERP system and populate that into OnBase to, again, minimize the amount of back and forth that's needed. And just as we talked about, we can interact with those workflows and those documents held within OnBase directly from that ERP system. And now you guys get a break from me, and I'm going to hand it back over to Trevor.
Thanks, Emma. So as Emma has taken you through this evolution of automation, the fourth and final stage is having a fully automated AP department. So what does that look like? So 32% of organizations responded to this report saying that they have a fully automated process. Now, a fully automated process will incorporate optical character recognition, and this will automatically read, extract, and validate information, drastically minimizing and in a lot of cases completely eliminating manual processes to enable straight-through processing, just as Emma just mentioned. So what is OCR? So optical character recognition, or OCR, is an electronic conversion of typed, handwritten, or printed text into machine-encoded text. So OCR technology will automatically ingest documents, read the data on the documents, and extract key information. Now, there are a variety of OCR solutions out there and available, and different OCR tools manage the extraction of data differently. Now, this extraction can range from header and footer extraction all the way to line item extraction. So Brainware Intelligent Capture Technology is an OnBase module and is one of those OCR solutions. Brainware Intelligent Capture replaces time-intensive manual tasks with fast and effective automation routines. With Brainware, you can automatically index documents, by leveraging that captured data that we've talked about. This improves the indexing accuracy, again, by reducing, or in a lot of cases, eliminating the human interaction and therefore the human error, which overall reduces the cost of data acquisition, again, by drastically reducing or eliminating this manual data entry. So going back to this slide, the slide very quickly, one of the key elements of Brainware is its ability to classify documents and data and do more complex data extraction. So Brainware pulls key information directly from paper and electronic documents faster and more accurately than other technologies without requiring templates, anchors, keywords, or zones. So Brainware forms a complete document processing system, combining automatic document classification, extraction, and validation, as well as then archiving, and then through the integrations that Emma spoke about just a few minutes ago, automatically uploading that data directly into your ERP system. So this AI tool uses contextual information, much like a human would, rather than relying on templates or zonal OCR. And over time, the learning engine in Brainware effectively teaches itself where to find information to generate higher confidence levels of that extraction. So if we take a look at this workflow chart that you've seen a couple times now, here's what a diagram of a fully automated workflow will look like. You can see now that instead of routing to an AP reviewer, intelligent capture technology takes over and automatically performs these tasks, including automated posting. So a fully automated process allows your department to focus on exception processing rather than processing everything. Again, all while significantly minimizing or completely eliminating both the usage of paper as well as manual processes.
So with that, we're coming up on just about a half an hour here, and we don't want to take up too much of your time beyond answering any additional questions that may come up. But just a couple of kind of wrap up and closing items. Again, this is a screen that we touched on at the beginning, but we hope through talking through those different levels of automation, you helped see how solutions that would be implemented partnering with Navient would help your organization speed up processing time by eliminating manual processes, improve your accuracy of that processing, increase visibility, and then again, in many cases, reducing or eliminating that manual keying effort. Working with Navient, as I mentioned a couple of times throughout the presentation, one of our key differentiators is our process methodology that's up here on the screen. I'm not going to dive too much into this today, but I really wanted to talk about the planning phase that's on the front end here in orange. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is, again, each one of these levels of automation brings value to your organization, but it's also important to understand kind of what level is necessary for your invoice volumes and your organization specifically, and figure out how we can help you determine that right path forward. Through this planning phase, we would work with your team to understand how you're currently operating and help you find the best path forward, knowing that we always have the opportunity to add and build onto that solution over time as your organization grows. So with that, I want to open it up to any questions that folks may have for us today. We'll stay on the line here for just a minute, making sure that there's no questions coming in. But again, please feel free to reach out directly to your account manager here at Navient, or Trevor or I, if you've got any further questions. And thank you again for joining us. Okay, it doesn't look like we've got any questions coming in today, so I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. But please, again, I encourage you, if you've got any questions or would like to have any further discussions, please reach out to your account manager here at Navient or Trevor or I, and we'd be happy to help you guys along on your journey. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.